Hey everybody, I'm Anna McEwen. And now for Bob Switzer with the epic narrative.
And we're back. We're back in the middle of this insane story. And trust me, if you didn't read ahead, because I know how some of you guys get. You actually read the Bible and then you know my material. You know, some people think I make all this up. I just read what's there. The story gets crazier. As crazy as it was. Remember last week, the Levite concubine goes to a Benjamite town because he doesn't want to stay with his father-in-law anymore, and he needs to get to Jerusalem and then up to the hill country with his concubine again, who's been unfaithful. Remember all that, right? And then in the city, the men want to have their way with the Levite. The Levite sends his concubine out, blah, blah, blah. She's destroyed literally overnight. He brings her all the way home. He cuts her up into 12 pieces and sends them somewhere. I have no idea who he sent the parts to. I don't know how long it took for them to get there. I assume they had to go with riders. And the riders came, they delivered the message as to why this body part was being sent to them. And it upset, I assume, the leadership because of what happens in this chapter. Everyone gathers. Now, we kind of get one of those synopsis verses, the first couple verses. We kind of see, and then we get a breakdown of how it happens. So I'll just read the first couple verses here. Then all of Israel from Dan to Beersheba, from the land of Gilead, came together as one and assembled before the Lord at Mizpah. The leaders of all the people of the tribes of Israel took their places in the assembly, God's people, 400,000 men armed with swords. So every tribe shows up at Mizpah. Now, Mizpah was a city in the Benjamite area, and it was an assembly place. It had a large watchtower and leadership. It's kind of like what Geneva, Switzerland, right? A lot of times, world leaders will gather in Geneva. Here in America, we have a place called Camp David, and sometimes, they may gather at the White House, they may gather at in New York City, they may gather down in Florida, but generally, if you wanted to name a place that our government is known to host multiple leaders, Camp David is that place. I actually found out while I lived in Florida that Key West used to be one of those places too. Truman used to host leaders from multiple countries down there. It was called the Southern White House or something like that. Anyways, side note. I'll move on. Now you know a bit of history. Thank you so much for coming. So every tribe shows up. It was like I said, the watchtower is built there. The administration of the tribes were there. So they were talking to a lot of people. All the governing personnel, secretaries, probably like advisors. Like it's a big group of people. It's not just like 12 guys and a couple others. Side notes. You're probably talking 150, 200 people show up because they are all appalled at what they've been told happened to the girl whose body part showed up at their doorstep. Now, granted, like I said, it showed up with a messenger, I'm sure, but they were appalled that this happened in the land of Israel. Like some of them sat back and they were like, we know everybody's been kind of doing whatever they want to do, whatever was been right in their own eyes. But seriously, this is horrific. Something needs to be done. Now, ultimately, as we know, we read 400,000 men showed up with swords. How did we get to that point? The Israelites, first of all, verse 3, the Benjamites, they heard that all of Israel had showed up at Mizpah. So they know there's this big assembly going on. The Israelites, said, tell us how this awful thing happened. So you can picture it like a large tent. The leadership is there. They probably have some undersecretary of some sort sitting behind them, a sub elder or a vice, whatever you want to call it. I know it's tough to really put into a good word picture because they led more through community and conversation than they did through a hierarchy. So there were other people there, but let's just say there's 50 people in a tent. And they probably are sitting in a circle. They all have beautiful pillows and rugs, and it's a beautiful tent, I have no doubt. And they're all sitting in there, and they're having this assembly. And outside of this assembly, there are all of the entourages that came with these 12 elders, as well as their cooks and their horses and their people that took care of the livestock. All this stuff is so it's a hopping place. And into the middle of the assembly, the Levite is invited in. And they basically say, all right, for the record, not that we didn't believe your servants when they showed up with the body parts, but we need to discuss it officially. For the record, sir, tell us what happened. Now, the Levite, he tells him what happened. And this is where again, right? You can believe that this is his version. This is his framing of what happened. And if you listen, and we'll read it through, there's going to be a little bit of exaggeration. There's going to be a little bit of information that's left out from the last round from last chapter. And he's going to end up, looking like the good guy, the surviving victim. So the Levite, the husband of the murdered woman, said, I and my concubine came to Gibeah in Benjamin to spend the night. During the night, the men of Gibeah came after me and surrounded the house, intending to kill me. They raped my concubine, and she died. I took my concubine, I cut her into pieces, and sent one piece to each of the regions of Israel's inheritance, because they committed this lewd and outrageous act in Israel. Now, all of you Israelites, speak up and tell me what you have decided to do. Now, that's a short version, but let's just point out a couple points here that are clearly made in this story. One, they did want to kill him. They wanted to rape him. They wanted to subject him to make sure he submitted to their culture and never came back. They wanted to use him as an example. But that didn't sound as serious, right? And then he's like, they raped my concubine. Now, as far as we know, he left out the detail that he gave him to, that he sent her out there. He sacrificed his concubine. And that he didn't even wait up for her. He let her be raped all night long. She crawls to the door barely alive and dies at the doorstep before sunrise, or as the sun is rising. He steps over her, remember, and he goes to the donkeys, gets them all saddled up, and he's like, let's go. We're leaving. Get up. So he leaves like all of this out. Somehow he's the victim, and he wants to know how he is going to be defended because he is the Lord's man. He is the chosen Levite. And the spiritual deprivation that has occurred on the watch of the elders. And that's what he's calling them out as. What are you guys going to do about this? This horrific act has occurred because of your leadership. Not, I didn't do anything wrong. I showed up in a Benjamite town to try to spend the night. And they raped my concubine until she died. What did I do wrong? This culture came about because of you. So now they take that challenge, right? They are agitated. They didn't travel all this way because they didn't think they shouldn't do something. They had something planned already by the time they arrived, and all they needed was the official word, the official story to be brought down so that they could then step up and demand something be done. So they all rose up together as one. Now, that doesn't mean like immediately, But they all rose together, unanimously voted or decided that none of us will go home. Not one of us will return to his house. But now this is what we'll do to Gibeah. We'll go up against it in order to decide by casting of lots. We'll take 10 men out of every 100. We'll take of all the tribes of Israel 100 from every 1,000 and 1,000 from every 10,000 to get provision for the army. Then when the army arrives at Gibeah in Benjamin, it will give them what they deserve for this outrageous act of that's done in Israel. So the Israelites got together and united as one against the city. The tribes of Israel sent messengers throughout the tribe of Benjamin saying, "What about this awful crime that was committed among you? Now turn those wicked men of Gibeah over to us so that we may put them to death and purge the evil from Israel." So they put together this army, pretty big army. And their main goal is to go down to Gibeah, stand outside, and demand that those who committed this act be put to death. This was, they were judged and sentenced to death. They were like, let us put them to death. Now, this was not necessarily an unusual punishment in that culture, whether it was Israeli or not. Being stoned to death for murdering somebody, not unusual. So what they're asking for, honestly, it's not something that you're going to sit back and go, whoa, that's serious. Like they know about stuff like this. But the Benjamites, they don't listen. They're doubling down on this. At once, the Benjamites mobilized 26,000 swordsmen from their towns, in addition to 700 able young men from those living in Gibeah. Among all the soldiers, there were 700 selected troops who were left-handed. And listen to this. This is crazy, right? Each one of whom could sling a stone at a hair and not miss it. So Israel, apart from Benjamin, mustered 400,000 swordsmen, all of them fit for battle. So basically, we now have a call for warfare. But it started out, remember, the Israelites, the leadership at Mizpah, they sent messengers throughout the towns of Benjamin saying, this horrible thing has occurred, and we want you to give us those who perform this heinous act, and we're going to put them to death, because this should not have happened in the land of Israel. This should not have happened in the promised land. This should not be part of the culture of God's chosen people. As weird and as wacky as they've gotten, this had crossed the line. The Benjamites were like, they had their own little meeting. Remember, they knew about this mitzvah thing. They had decided probably before the messengers ever showed up. They were like, if they threaten us, what are we going to do? Are we going to turn these guys in? Or are we going to do our own thing? And they were like, you know what? Let's take them on. And the tribal pride came out. And they told the messengers, we're not turning them in. We'll take you on. And they put together a pretty good army. And as is Benjamin, the tribe of Benjamin is known for, they were known for the slingshot. The same thing David was known for. And they were known to be left-handed was a unique thing, because it allowed you then to hold the sword with your right hand and sling with your left hand, which made you incredibly dangerous to approach, because you could literally knock somebody dead at 200 to 300 yards away, and you could do that multiple times while they're trying to run at you. It was, trust me, this sling thing was intense, and you can look it up on YouTube. I've told you that before. These things will shatter wooden targets and stuff. Just shatter them, because they're traveling at hundreds of miles an hour. Anyways, so sorry, I know. Bob's like, we get it, Bob. The stone goes fast. Move along. Okay, I'm moving along. So Israelites are like, fine, you want to do battle? We'll put together a big army too. Not just an army. We're going to put together a ridiculously big, like 400,000 people. That's supposed to intimidate the Benjamites. They are not intimidated. No. We have declared civil war. I'm guessing that their side of the story was also getting out there, which was, hey, the Levite gave us his concubine, and it's just a concubine. It's not like it was his wife, his covenant wife. He can go get another concubine. We wanted him, so it's not like, like it's fine. Like what we did doesn't deserve murder, is what they're saying. So it's 11 tribes against one. The Benjamite signature troops are out there. That was something that, again, that David was trained in. And they let's see. I got ahead of myself on verses here. Left-handed Israel, apart from Benjamin, mustered 400,000. The Israelites went up to Bethel. Now the Israelites here are the 11 tribes. They inquired of God. They said, "Who of us is to go first to fight the Benjamites?" And they believe, the Lord said, Judah shall go first. So the next morning, the Israelites got up, pitched a tent near Gibeah, and the Israelites went out to fight the Benjamites and took up battle positions against them at Gibeah. And the Benjamites came out of Gibeah and cut down 22,000 Israelites on the battlefield that day. The Israelites encouraged one another again and took up their positions where they had stationed themselves on the first day. So, they basically went in probably super overconfident. The Benjamites came out knowing their battle plan, understanding the way the Israelites were probably going to do battle, and they wiped them out. They defeated them, killed them by the thousands, and then everybody ran. So the Israelites came out and they literally did the same thing again the second day. This time the Benjamites came out from Gibeah and opposed them. They cut down 18,000. And all the Israelites, the whole army, went up to Bethel, and there they sat weeping before the Lord. They fasted that day until the evening and presented burnt offerings and fellowship offerings to the Lord. And the Israelites inquired of the Lord. I guess the ark of the Lord was there, and Phinehas and the son of Eleazar and of Aaron were there with it. And they asked, "Shall we go up to fight the Benjamites, all the fellow Israelites, or not?" And the Lord responded, "Go, for tomorrow I will give them into your hands." Now, again, I don't think God's giving them battle plans to kill each other. I don't think that's his plan. I think his plan is always to bring life. But to be fair, the Israelites did come up with a new plan. Day 1, they lost to the Benjamites. Day 2, they lost to the Benjamites. Day 3, they put together a new plan where it looked like the old plan, but instead they set up an ambush. So they were like, okay, let's do the same thing again, but this time we will wait on the side with 10,000 men. And when Benjamites come out, they're going to see us again, and they're going to think these guys are idiots, and they're going to fight. And then we'll send up a signal. And when you see the signal, then we will turn and fight them for real. And we'll see how it goes. So again, they put together this plan. They begin to the Benjamites came out to meet them. They were drawn away from the city. They began to inflict casualties as they had been as they had before. So about 30 men fell in the open field and on the roads, and one leading to Bethel and the other to Gibeah. And while the Benjamites were saying, "We are defeating them as before," the Israelites were saying, "Let retreat and get them as far away from the city roads as possible." All the men of Israel moved to their places and took up their positions. 10,000 of Israel that were... Sorry, my dog just barked. Stop. Hey, He thinks there's 10,000 men outside. I'm very sorry about that. Now, the 10,000 able young men made a frontal attack on Gibeah. Oh, sorry. The Israelites moved from their places and took up positions, and the Israelites ambushed, charged out of its place of the west at Gibeah. They were fighting so heavily that the Benjamites did not realize how near disaster was, and the Lord defeated the Lord, right? Always bring God in when you're going to kill people. The Lord defeated Benjamite before Israel, and on that day Israel struck down 25,100 Benjamites, all armed with swords. Then the Benjamites saw that they were beaten. Now the men of Israel had not given away before Benjamin, because they had relied on the ambush that they set near Gibeah. Those that had been ambushed made a sudden dash into Gibeah, spread out, and put the whole city to the sword. Israelites had arranged with the ambush that they should send up a great cloud of smoke from the city, and when the Israelites would counterattack the Benjamites, the column of smoke would go up, etc., etc. So they describe it more in detail. Israelites countered attack, and the Benjamites were terrified because they realized what disaster had come to them. So they fled before Israel in every direction into the wilderness, but they could not escape the battle. And the Israelites came out of the towns, and they cut them down, and they surrounded the Benjamites and chased them easily and overran them in the vicinity of Gibeah to the east. And 18,000 of Benjamites fell, and all of them were valiant warriors. And as they turned and fled toward the wilderness and to the rock of Rimmon, and the Israelites cut them down, and on that day 25,000 Benjamite swordsmen fell, and all of them valiant fighters. But 600 of them turned and fled into the wilderness, into the rocks, and there they stayed for 4 months. The men of Israel went back to Benjamin and put the towns to the sword, including the animals and everything else they found, and all the towns they came across, they set to fire. So this was a crazy day, right? Israelites finally win. 600 men of Benjamin fled and hid. Like, they didn't even try to come out for 4 months. Because as the Benjamites were running, they would run into other towns or run near villages of other places of Israel, but everyone knew what they had done, and they would kill the Benjamite soldiers. So this was true civil war. The rest of the country hated this tribe for what they had done. They hated them for what they, somehow they had crossed the line, even though other people were worshiping other idols and doing despicable things as far as the law of God and the kingdom principles were concerned. This was the worst. They were inhospitable, and they created an environment where control and rape and power ruled over quote God. And even though the other guys were doing all kinds of crazy stuff, they still worshiped God, and they still, at least verbally, said they did. But the Benjamites had clearly come to a place where they no longer did. At least that's the way the rest of Israel felt. So with all that going on, in in chapter 21, we find out that as part of their meeting in Mitzvah, they took a vow. The men of Israel had taken an oath. Not one of us will give his daughter in marriage to a Benjamite. Right? Now, it doesn't just mean the individual. What they're saying is, of the 11 other tribes, none of us will give any of our women to the Benjamites to marry. The people went to Bethel, where they sat before the Lord until evening, raising their voices and weeping bitterly. And the Lord God of Israel, they cried, "Why has this happened to Israel? Why should one tribe be missing from Israel today?" So basically, logic set in, right? No women will be given to Benjamin from any other tribe. Then Israel kills all these people. They go from town to town, wiping them out, more or less. And 4 months later, they're sitting around going, this tribe is going to die out. There's no one left. We took out all the women and children. We took out all of their towns. So now what are we going to do? So the Israelites, verse 6, they grieved. They grieved the tribe of Benjamin, their fellow Israelites. Today, one tribe is cut off from Israel, they said. How can we provide wives for those who are left, since we have taken an oath by the Lord not to give them any of our daughters in marriage? Interesting. They got all fired up. And then they realized what they had actually done. Now, I'm guessing a few people might have objected to that oath, but the power of peer pressure and political weight ultimately took over, and everyone agreed. Remember, they rose with one voice. We are going to wipe out the tribe of Benjamin for what they did, and that's part of the way that they were wiping them out. But now they're like, what are we going to do? If we keep our vow, this tribe ends. Now, granted, the enemy of the Lord, the devil, the evil one, he's pretty happy about this. He got them all riled up. He got them all focused on death and destruction. And their success was he was very happy about, right? So verse 7, how can we provide wives for those who are left, since we have taken an oath? They're worried about the fact they took an oath to the Lord, and you know, they're so pious and religious that in their mind they're like, we can't go back on our oath. We swore to God that we would put this tribe to death. Trust me, if any oath could have been reneged on and the Lord be okay with it, this would be one of them. I also want to throw this out. Remember now, this is the tribe, Benjamin. This is the tribe that David's line comes from. Now, granted, Jesse comes from Boaz and Ruth, which we get into actually next week, because we'll finish up Judges today. But and that's probably, you know, David's probably more than 50 years away from being born. But still, this is a crazy history within your tribe. David would have known, his family would have been known by many people who are about to get the solution. This is the solution to getting around the vow, the oath. Sorry, there's a difference. To getting around the oath that they took when they decided that it was a good thing to wipe out the tribe of Benjamin for what they'd done. In verse 8, they said there was one tribe. Which one of the tribes of Israel failed to assemble before the Lord at Mizpah? They discovered that no one from Jabesh, Gilead, had come to the camp for the assembly. When they counted the people, they found that none of the people from Jabesh had showed up. Which I wonder what the politics were like in that village, where, you know, in that whatever area of the country where that elder was like, no, I'm not being a part of this. I'm not going to be a part of civil war. And so they just didn't show. Now the Israelites are coming to them for a solution. They go, they found among the people living there 400 virgins, 400 young women that had never slept with a man, and they took them to the camp at Shiloh, and the whole assembly sent an offer of peace to the Benjamites at the rock of Rephaim, which is where the area, the region that those 600 guys had run to. So basically, the Israelites, a few, 3-4 months later, they're like, we might have overseen, we just might have crossed the line here. Maybe we need to find a solution to get around the vow that we took, the oath that we took. So they go to this one village area of villages, and they're like, all right, so you guys didn't show up to do any battles, so this is what we want. You didn't take an oath that we did, so we need all your virgins, because we need to give them to the tribe of Benjamin, or the tribe's going to be wiped out, because the only men that are left are up in this hill country living in caves. and there's no women. And we've already sworn to not give them women, but you weren't there, so we need your women. So they took 400 of these girls, which, just culturally for me is bizarre. Someone shows up at your little town, well, even let's just say your apartment block if you live in the city, and they're like, hey, we need all you virgins. There's 400 of you. We need to take all of you and bring you to another apartment block and give you away to the men. Honestly, this speaks to so many cultural craziness in my head. It's so anti-kingdom of God. It is not what Moses taught them. Well, he might have taught them, actually. It's not what God intended for them. And yet this is where they're at. So this was their solution. They get up, they take them up to the mountains areas, they send out an envoy. They say, listen, we want to offer you a peace treaty. We will give you 400 women to 400 of your men to start families again. So the Benjamites returned at the time and were given the women of Jabesh Gilead who had been spared, but there were not enough for all of them. Remember, they only had 400, but there were 600 or so men. I know these are probably not exact numbers, but generally speaking, there's about 200 guys who didn't get a wife. And the people grieved for Benjamin because the Lord had made such a gap in the tribes of Israel. Basically, that civil war, right? And they blamed the Lord for that. The Lord made this gap. No, you deciding to wipe out the tribe made the gap. That's the issue here. Not you deciding that justice was mass murder. That's what made the gap. Don't drag God into this and say, well, the Lord did it. I mean, we were just his servants. This is that whole well, God's in control. I mean, we really, we're just puppets on a string. All right. So what are you going to do? We got 200 or so guys that don't have the potential to create heirs so that their names will continue to go on in the tribes throughout of Israel. So the Israelites, the other 11, they get together and they're like, okay, we've got to think of something. We've already told them we can't give them our daughters. We've taken an oath. Cursed be anyone who gives a wife to Benjamite. But look, this is insane. This is insane to me. There's an annual festival of the Lord in Shiloh, which lies north of Bethel, east of the road that goes from Bethel to Shechem, and south of Lebanon. So everybody knew where this road was. They instructed the Benjamites, go hide in the vineyards and watch. When the young women of Shiloh come out to join in the dancing, rush from the vineyards and seize one, and that person will become your wife. Then return to the land of Benjamin. When their fathers or brothers complain to us and say, do us the favor of helping them because we did not get wives for them during the war, you will not be guilty of breaking your oath because you did not give your daughters to them. So in other words, they're saying, we're going to get around this with semantics. We're going to have plausible deniability. This is the plan. This is the plan. Hide in the cornfields. All the virgins wear certain colored dresses. They go down to Shiloh. You know exactly the road they're going to take. When this large group of virgins come through, wait till they're all kind of in the middle, then rush out, grab them, drag them back to Benjamite, and that way there, we haven't given you our virgin daughters to marry. You stole them. And what are we going to do? We promise we're not coming after you for them. In other words, we're not going to exact justice for kidnapping and raping our daughters because we took an oath that we wouldn't give them to you, but we're not giving them to you. So if anybody comes to us and complains later on and says, why did you give your daughters to the Benjamites? We can say, we didn't. They kidnapped them and raped them on their way to the festival in Shiloh. This is crazy. Every guy gets a girl. All the oaths are kept. The girls are kidnapped and raped. Kind of honestly, isn't this why this whole thing started? A concubine was given and was raped. And supposedly that was the justice, was to create genocide and wipe out almost an entire tribe of Israel. But you see, the Benjamites, they get to rebuild their tribe. They get to rebuild their villages. And this is the culture that basically 100 years or less before David, and probably about 50 years before Saul, this is the culture that they were in essence brought into. Politics, power, death, idolatry, mixed in with worship of God, festivals of the Jewish festivals. What did I the Hebrew Jewish traditional of the law? Anyways, such a crazy mix. And at some level, you wonder why. David's line comes through Ruth in the tribe of Benjamin, because the tribe of Benjamin was filled with these kind of shenanigans. We'll talk about it, I'm sure, in season 6 again, but David's father, Jesse, was his bloodline was always questioned because he had a Moabitess grandmother. And even though he had 7 sons, the Benjamites questioned his true loyalty. It was a place of contention. Well, the Benjamites are very contentious people. All they had to do was probably turn in about 7 or 8 guys who had raped a concubine, and everything. They could have said, well, guys, you raped a girl. Like the penalty for that is death. We're going to turn you over. But instead, the tribal pride was so deep, they stand up and say, no, we're going to go to battle. And tens of thousands of people lost their lives over pride and arrogance. So is it any wonder sometimes when you look at the story of David, and we will, where that kind of tribal pride, this goes deep. I mean, we can talk about Southern pride in the United States. And I know there's been a lot of work done, and a lot of people have calmed down, but there's still a lot of pride. And sometimes it's transferred to football teams or whatever, but man, pride will kill you. Pride cometh before the fall. And it is a tool of the enemy, and he uses it and wields it with incredible accuracy. So if nothing else, I think that's why this story is out there. It is a weird, wild, strange story. And it is filled with nastiness when it comes to the kingdom of God. But it is something that we do not back away from here at the Epic Narrative. And next week we will start one of the most beautiful love stories of all time. We'll be in the book of Ruth. Come back. Once more. Not one more. No, not one more. Come back again. Thank you very much. And we'll see you next week on the Epic Narrative.
Don't go anywhere. We've got Bob Thoughts.
And that's another crazy story in the book of Judges. And for me, I mean, I learned a lot through the book of Judges, for sure. I realized just how non-heroic so many of the judges were when I grew up being taught and trained that they were some form of like, what are the avengers? They are often portrayed as like this group of men and one woman who just, without them, the nation would have had massive downfall. And yet you look at most of them and you say, you know what? Maybe, I mean, maybe they weren't perfect. maybe we should have been a little more realistic about who they were and what their motives were and why they did what they did. But overall, I mean, I learned a lot, and they did accomplish what their goal was, and then often they went way off the rails after that, or they never quite got on the rails. I was amazed at how lonely Samson was. That one really threw me for a loop. Nah, not a loop, but it did throw me. Once I kind of looked at his whole life, I was like, wow, sad life. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. We are about to head off into Ruth, one of everybody's favorites. Oh, love, amore. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. I look forward to doing it. We are currently recording season 6, which will be 1 Samuel, and I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying doing it, in essence, the second time around, and I think you're going to enjoy it as well. We're doing it. Anyways, you'll see. It's coming out in a couple months. I'm sure you'll be aboard. Listen, if you have ways that you can promote, that would be awesome. If you could promote the Epic Narrative. And again, you can do that by periodically just throwing it up on your social media. You can use one of our episode promos, or you can ask me for something specific. You can go to the Epic Narrative Facebook page. There's a bunch of promotional pieces there. Just put it up. Just say, hey, I really like this episode, or I really like this this podcast. It would really help us out. Because you guys are awesome. And if you could help us out financially, that would be fabulous. You can reach out specifically to me. I can tell you how you can do that. We are not a nonprofit, so you'll have to just want to support us. But you can do that through Apple Pay. You do that through Zelle. You can do it through PayPal. And then I don't know if any of you would want to do this, but this would be kind of fun. If there are other podcasts that you listen to that you think I would be a good guest on, then reach out to those podcasts and suggest me. I've been on Rethinking God with Tacos podcast. I would love to get back there. They are some good people, but I know that there are other podcasts out there that are listened to by my listeners. And if you don't mind, reach out to them. It's difficult for me because I don't, it's difficult to send out your own promotional piece. Like, hey, I'd be a great interview. But if one of their listeners reaches out and says, you should really listen to the, interview Bob Switzer from the Epic Narrative, then the conversation gets started. So it doesn't have to be a huge multinational podcast, but I would love to do that. It could be your local church podcast, could be your podcast. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, I'm pretty open. It doesn't have to be about what I do on the podcast. Could be about church politics, could be about theologies, could be about family life, it could be about communication. There's lots of things that I happen to have thoughts on. Anyways, have yourself a good day, everyone. I look forward to seeing you next week on The Epic Narrative.
Hey everyone. Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe to this podcast on any platform you use. You can also reach out to Bob for questions or booking at thebobswitzer.com or email him at thebobswitzer@gmail.com. See you next week, guys.